You're listening to the Fed and Fearless podcast. On today's episode, I'm going to share with you how to price your coaching offers so that they're irresistible to your ideal clients. So stay tuned. Welcome to the Fed and Fearless podcast. I'm your host, Laura Schoenfeld, a registered dietitian, nutrition business coach, and online entrepreneur with over 10 years of experience in online business. And I'm here to show you everything I've learned about creating a life and a business that nourishes you. On this podcast, we'll talk about the lifestyle habits, practical strategies, mindset shifts, and leaps of faith required to build a healthy body, a powerful mind, a strong spirit, and a successful business. Hey there, welcome back to the Fed and Fearless podcast. I'm your host, Laura Schoenfeld, and I'm going to preface this episode with just letting you guys know that I'm recovering from a cold. If you follow me on Instagram, I forget exactly when this episode is going to be coming out, but basically the first week of November 2022 has been quite rough for me individually or as a person. Now, that's not to say that it's necessarily leaked into my business. And that's one thing that I really pride myself on is being able to follow through on my commitments, like recording this podcast, even when my personal life gets a little hectic or crazy. But basically in the last week, I've had a GI issue that kept me up overnight. I got a cold. We had daylight savings time. I got my first postpartum period, which was kind of unexpected because my baby's only 4.5 months old and she's still exclusively breastfeeding, still nursing overnight. So, and now Vera has a little bit of a sniffly nose this morning. So let's hope that that doesn't turn into anything. But needless to say, it's been kind of a crazy week, crazy start to the month of November. And so my voice might sound a little funny. I honestly don't even know. I thought it sounded a little funny on the recording. But I just wanted to give you guys that heads up just in case I sound a little strange if you're a regular listener. Now, today's podcast is inspired by a summit presentation that I actually am going to be doing in a few days. By the time this podcast comes out, it'll already have happened. But this presentation is for Practice Better. Practice Better is releasing their new programs software for Practice Better users, which is really exciting because one of my favorite things to help people do in their business is to create some kind of scalable program for their customers. Now, a scalable program can be a lot of different things, and I'll have to do a podcast episode on that just to talk through like what actually makes a program scalable. But basically, it's taking what you do for people one-on-one and very individualized type of services into something that can be systematized and put into a process and created curriculum for, and to be able to help more people with less of you. And that's really the goal of the people that I work with in my Nutrition Business Accelerator program and the various offers that I have, and even with my handful of one-on-one clients that I work with. All of them are looking to create a business that requires less of them is kind of the ultimate goal. And so creating a program that can be delivered to your paying customers as part of the service that you provide is something that can greatly increase the value and the efficacy of the services that you're delivering. And so the new updates that Practice Better has for their program software inside of the Practice Better platform is really exciting. We personally use Kajabi for the program side of things, just because there's some elements that Kajabi has that we really like. And we basically created our whole business on Kajabi as far as the group programs are concerned before Practice Better made these updates. We still use Practice Better for our one-on-one clients and doing any sort of session-based services like that. But I really do feel like having all of the content and all of the things you want to help somebody with outside of your sessions inside of Practice Better and combining that with your one-on-one services can be a really great way to create a really awesome offer and to create a valuable service to provide to your clients. So I say that because I created this presentation on pricing for the Practice Better Summit. and I'm looking forward to presenting it. I'm a little nervous that it's going to go over time. They've given me about an hour to go over the content, and I've had to cut a lot out of it. And so my hope is that I can stick to an hour. If you're one of my clients, you know I can definitely go a lot longer than an hour for an educational presentation. And even if you're a listener to the podcast, you know that it's easy for me to spend an hour on a podcast episode. So my hope is that I'm able to stick to the time and have time for that Q&A session at the end. And if you're somebody who did attend the Practice Better Program Summit and you watched my presentation on pricing, let me know what you thought. I would love to hear from you and just to know if this was something that was valuable for you, helpful for you. I think at last I heard there's like 3,000 people signed up for it. So that's pretty exciting. I always love the opportunity to get in front of new audience, a big audience, an audience that's really motivated and paying attention. And the fact that they signed up for the summit makes me believe that they are people that want to create a program for their online health and nutrition business. So I'm really excited to have that opportunity. Hopefully my voice is back to normal by the time that happens in a few days. But, whether it is or isn't, I'm still going to show up and do my best to teach to the best of my ability and to really serve and give a ton of value. So I hope that if you were there, that you got a lot out of it. And if you weren't, then my hope today is that I can give a little bit of insight into the topic that I'm going to be covering in that training. And it's funny to say I'm going to be covering it because, like I said, by the time this podcast comes out, it'll already have happened. So if you did attend, this might be a little bit of a refresher, or maybe I'll say some things that I didn't say during that summit experience. But if you missed the summit, then this is a great opportunity to get a little bit of that content that you missed. So on today's episode, I want to talk about pricing. And pricing is a really interesting conversation because there's so many different philosophies about pricing out there. And I'm the kind of coach that I try not to get too locked into one approach. I personally feel that premium pricing is the best way for any health and wellness and nutrition entrepreneur to grow their business to their first six or multi-six figures without having to have a massive audience or be working all the time or to be on social media all the time. And that's what I teach inside of the Nutrition Business Accelerator, which is my signature program, the one that we help the vast majority of our clients build their businesses through. That's really what I teach inside that program, is that higher ticket premium program that is designed to deliver a very specific transformation, a specific outcome for a specific type of person. So that's what we teach. And it's something that there's a lot of steps involved in creating a really good, easy to sell, easy to market premium program in the health and wellness space. But I want to give you a little bit of insight into the pricing conversation. And I'm going to preface this with, I'm not going to give you specific numbers. Now, I know sometimes when people are asking about what they should charge for their services, they literally want somebody to just tell them how much total dollar amount they should charge for a particular program or service. And there's a few reasons why I really try to avoid ever suggesting pricing to anybody, whether they're a client or not. Now, there's a few different things that need to come into play when you're thinking about pricing that only you know the answers to. And that means only you can come up with an appropriate price based on knowing those answers. I can guide you. I can give you suggestions. I can give you, typical ranges that other people are charging. I can tell you what some of my clients are charging that can inspire you to increase your prices or charge a certain amount. But at the end of the day, no coach is going to be able to tell you exactly what you should charge for your program. The reason for this is, one, I don't know your unique audience. So the type of people that you work with and the particular problem you solve is something that is going to drastically impact your price point. And we'll talk about that in a minute, because that's one of the first steps that I have my clients figure out before they pick any sort of pricing for their services. But you're going to have a different price point depending on who you work with. So as an example, if you want to work with college students as your target population, you probably can't charge the same amount of money that someone can charge if they're going to work with retired executives as an example. So somebody who made a lot of money over the course of their life and now has relatively low cost of living because they're living on their retirement. So, those two audiences are going to have a very different budget, a very different amount of money that they're willing to spend on their health. And so that's going to impact your prices, whatever your unique audience is. And that should be part of the thought process you're thinking through when you're deciding on your niche. I don't want to go into a ton of detail on that because we could talk about niche all day. But this will affect your particular price point. Now, in addition to the people that you work with, I also don't know what problem you solve. And there's going to be certain problems that you can work with inside of the health and wellness space that are either very high value or less high value, or maybe not valuable at all, unfortunately. And again, that's part of the niching process. If you guys are interested in learning how to niche appropriately and effectively, I do have a whole masterclass. I think it's like 2.5 to 3 hours long, talking about how to niche effectively. And that's something that you can buy on my website, lauraschoenfeld.com. But when you're picking your niche, part of it is picking your problem. And as an example, I used to work with women with amenorrhea. So amenorrhea is when they're not getting a regular period. And from my experience, not getting a regular period was not a high value problem for a lot of women. Not all women, but many women didn't really care if they were getting their period or not. I mean, as someone who literally just got their first period, and I think it was like, my Daisy said it had been 420 days since my last one, I wasn't very excited about it. I was definitely fine to not have one for a while. And so the fact that I just got it again recently was not something I was necessarily wanting. So you can imagine that that's not a very valuable problem to solve for a lot of women, especially if a lot of women would rather not have one at all. Versus when I was working with women who wanted to get pregnant and didn't have a period, that was a whole different story. And that was actually a valuable problem to solve. So the weird thing was, it was the same problem, the missing period, but the value in the problem was more about what it was leading to, which was essentially a fertility challenge. And fertility, or I don't even like the word infertility, but that is a word that gets thrown around in the medical field. Infertility is a very high value problem. People spend $30,000 to $60,000 to get pregnant using IVF. So, asking somebody to spend $1,000 to get their period and then to be able to get pregnant is really a deal compared to spending $30,000 to get pregnant. So the type of problem you solve is going to affect your pricing for sure. And I try to encourage my clients to really make sure that they're picking high value problems and that they're being aware of the value of the problem and that there's demand for the problem that they're solving. And you get to choose, right? Like if you're super passionate about amenorrhea, it's not like you can't build a successful business on that, but you're probably going to have a lot harder of a time selling that problem, especially at a higher price point, than if you work with something like infertility or cancer or heart disease, things that are really serious that people are willing to spend more money to get solved. So since I don't know what problem you solve for your clients, that's going to affect my ability to suggest a price for you. Another thing is I don't know what level of support you plan to provide. So we'll get into this in a minute, but the way you serve your clients actually affects how much you want to charge. So I'm sure you can understand that if you're doing a one-on-one program, that's going to be something that costs a different amount than if you're doing a group program or a DIY course. So you get to choose that as the business owner. And if you are choosing a more high-touch program or a low-touch program, that's going to affect your pricing as well. Another thing I don't know is what your financial goals are. So I have a free guide, which we'll talk about this in the outro to the podcast where you can get this for free, but I have a free guide on establishing your pricing to actually an exact dollar amount. And that is at lauraschoenfeld.com/profit, PROFIT, if you want to go check that out. But in that, part of what we do is actually help you figure out what your financial goals are to help you decide what you should be charging for your services in order to reach those goals. So if you're somebody who is like me and you're the full-time income generator for your family and you have a certain amount of money that your family needs to have the things that they want and need, then that's going to be a different conversation than if you are someone who's just looking for a little extra spending money, or you just want to work 10 hours a week and have some extra like vacation money for your family, or you want to put some stuff away for retirement. That is going to affect what you need to charge in order to reach those goals. So your personal financial goals will impact what you charge for things, because that's actually going to help you work backwards to figure out what you need to be selling, how much you need to be selling, and how much you need to be charging in order to hit those goals in your business. And the last thing I don't know, which this could be a little spicy for some of you, is I don't know how good you are at what you do. Now, what I mean there is that if you're really, really good at serving and solving a specific problem for people, then you're going to be able to charge more than somebody who's brand new to the online, and not even just online, right? Like if you just graduated from your health or nutrition program and you just started working with clients, you're not going to have as much experience. You're not going to have as much knowledge. There's going to be a lot of stuff you're still going to learn over the next 5, 10 plus years. And you're not going to be as good at solving the problem as someone who has been working in the field for 20 years. And I don't say that to make you feel bad. It's not necessarily like, encouraging imposter syndrome or anything like that. It's just being really realistic about what you're capable of and how good you are at the service that you want to provide. And if you're brand new and you're just getting started and you have a general idea of how you want to help people, but you don't have a lot of experience, then chances are you're going to want to charge less than what you would be charging in 5 years from now after you've worked with hundreds of people. And I think sometimes people shy away from that conversation because a lot of business coaches out there are like, oh, charge what you're worth, and girlfriend, you should, raise your rates, and, just like that kind of mindset around pricing where it's just like that quote unquote charge what you worth mindset. I personally hate it. I don't know about you. If you guys like me as a coach, then you probably don't like that mindset either. But it's just this arbitrary, like, oh, just raise your rates because you're worth it. I do not like that advice. I think it's totally useless. And sometimes you really do need to actually earn the rate increase, right? You need to actually prove that you're good at what you do. You have to prove that you can solve this problem. You have to demonstrate that you've been able to help people get the results that they want before you've earned the right to raise your prices. So that's, that's my personal perspective. I didn't start out charging over $1,000 an hour for business coaching. I think I used to charge like $300 to $500 an hour for that. And I have worked up to the amount that I charge now. And I have mentors that charge $5,000 an hour for the coaching programs that they do one-on-one through. And it's because they're more experienced than me and they've gotten bigger results for themselves. They've gotten bigger results for their clients and customers. And so they've earned the right to charge that much for their services. So it's not about, my worth not being high or anyone else's worth being like questionable. It's just being really realistic and honest about the service you provide and how good you are at the work that you do and whether or not you feel like you're able to provide more value than what you're charging based on how confident you are that you can get results for people. So that's just to say that there's no shame in starting low, especially if you're new, and not low in the sense that you're like living off of ramen noodles because you can't pay your bills, but starting on the lower end. And that's something that we actually help inside of that profit guide that I mentioned, that free download. You can download that and it'll tell you what your minimum hourly rate should be to reach your goals and your whatever money you need to be making to support your life. And so once you figured that out, then when you're new, you could start on that lower end and really just work to a place where you do feel confident in raising your prices, because it's always easier to raise your prices than lower them down the road. And I would rather you go a little lower and be super, super confident about what you're selling than jack up your prices and then be like having this imposter syndrome, negative feeling about them, and then not getting good results on sales calls or in sales DMs or, on a sales page because you haven't energetically matched the level of payment that you're asking for when it comes to the service that you're providing. So that's something that I don't think enough coaches talk about because it's not a sexy thing to say, to be like, maybe you just need to get better at what you do before you want to raise your price. But that's my perspective. And that's how I approach my business. If I'm ever going to raise the price of anything that I do, I want to be dead certain that I have more than proven that the service I'm providing is way more valuable than what I'm charging before I'm going to increase the price. Because even for my one-on-one services, I mentioned that my hourly rate for one-on-one at this point is over $1,000 an hour. And that's because the people that I work with, first of all, are already at a level in their business where spending several $1,000s on half a day working with me is not a big part of their revenue. Like it's something that they can work into their budget. And the people that I work with at that level, they go and implement what I talk to them about in that, it's like a 3-hour block maybe that we work together with. They go implement that and they can make that back within a week or a month, right? Versus someone who's new to business really probably can't make that back that quickly. And so the people that I work with at that level, I am very, very confident that as long as that they actually do the work, because I can't do the work for them, that they will make multiple times their investment after that session with me. And again, I have invested thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars and hundreds of hours into my education as a coach and a consultant. And I've been working in this space for 10 years plus now. So, I have a lot of stuff that I have done work behind the scenes to get to a place where I am very, very confident that if somebody spends an hour with me, they're going to get more than $1,000 worth of value over the course of their business lifetime. And for my higher earning clients that are the ones that I reserve these one-on-one sessions for, they can make it back within, like I said, weeks or months at most. So you need to be thinking about the same thing for your business, whether you're in the health and wellness space or some kind of other coaching and consulting space. You should be able to prove to yourself, if not your clients, that the rates that you're charging are less than what the value you're going to bring to them is going to be. And that is something you can do in the wellness space. I'll see if we have time to talk about that today, but that's something that, again, I think a lot of these more like mindset woo-woo type of coaches, they only want to tell you to raise your price just because, it's a quick win. It's an easy way for you to make more money. But I really believe that you have to energetically match the amount of money you're asking for your clients. And the way you're going to energetically match it is by actually exceeding the value that they are paying in the way that you can serve and support them. And a lot of that value comes from your experience, your education, the work that you've done to become the best coach possible in the area that you want to work in. And that's another plug for niching, because it's very, very difficult to get really good at what you do if you're trying to get good at everything. Trust me, I know, because I've been there. When I was first starting my business, I had a very, very broad niche. I was helping a lot of people with a lot of different things. And not to say that I didn't have financial success, because I was able to hit 6 figures in my first year. And then I was able to hit multi-6 figures. I think like year 3 was when we crossed the 200K range for the revenue. But it was a lot harder for me to scale that because I was not niched and because I was trying to be good at everything, basically, like all sorts of different things, autoimmune disease, fertility, weight loss, performance, like all these different things that women were coming to me with. And that made it difficult for me to really grow in my skills and get better at what I was doing quickly because I was spreading myself so thin. I just happened to work really hard, and I was in a job working with Chris Kresser that gave me a ton of exposure to education and opportunities to learn more. So I had a unique opportunity to get a lot better at a lot of different things, but that's not typical, and I don't recommend it because it definitely made things a lot harder than it needed to be. So I just wanted to preface the next part of this podcast with that conversation, because at the end of the day, no coach can tell you how much you should charge. And if you're asking a coach to tell you, you're going to get a bad answer, even if they give you an answer. And if they do give you an answer, you got to question, is that coach really looking out for your best interest by just spoon feeding you something that may not even be accurate? And I just want you guys to be the most prepared business owners possible and know the things that are going to affect the prices that you choose to charge. And the things that we've just talked about are things that affect what you charge. And we're going to get into some more nitty-gritty details about that now. But I wanted to make sure that you don't wrap up this conversation today thinking you didn't get the answer you were looking for, because ultimately the answer is within you. That's really kind of the theme of all the coaching I do with my clients, is that the true answer is within you. And I'm just here to ask the questions and give you the perspective to get to that answer. And that's what we do on this podcast too. So hopefully you're here for it. If you're not, then, I'm probably not the coach for you. But if you are here for it, then I'm here to help equip you to be in the driver's seat of your business and your life, and to really know how to make these choices for yourself. So all of that said, I wanted to go over really what we teach inside of the Nutrition Business Accelerator program when it comes to creating an offer. And the reason I say creating an offer, not specifically picking pricing, is because pricing is part of your offer. You can't just pick a random price without knowing your offer. And your offer not only is going to determine your price, but it's also going to determine how well your offer sells at that price. Because the more you raise your price, the harder it's going to be to sell your thing. But the easier it's going to be to make money, because you don't have to sell it to as many people. That's my philosophy with most business owners. And again, for your first offer, choosing something that's the highest ticket possible that still sells and sells well. Because if you're new to business, it's a lot harder to make money when you're selling something low ticket. You have to sell it to hundreds or thousands of people. Versus if you're selling something high ticket, you might only have to sell it to 50 people or 30 people or 100 people across the course of a year. So we're going to go over what I call the 8 Ps of an irresistible offer. This is exactly what we teach inside of the NBA program. Now, of course, I go into way more detail in that program, and I also help you implement inside of that program. I do a lot of coaching and supporting with the actual execution piece, but I just wanted to give you the 30,000 foot view of what you want to be thinking about when you're creating your irresistible offer. And part of that, like I said, is what you're actually going to charge for that offer. And your offer is just whatever you're selling. I just want to keep things really simple here. If you are selling one-on-one, if you're selling a group program, if you're selling a course, if you're selling an ebook, it doesn't really matter what it is. If somebody's giving you money in exchange for a service or a product, that is your offer. So we're going to go over the 8 Ps. I'm going to explain them in basic detail. And if you want more on this, then you belong inside of our Nutrition Business Accelerator program. So the first P is, who is your offer specifically for? We touched on this a few minutes ago, but basically this is who you want to work with inside of your program, inside of your course, whoever you're trying to sell this thing to. And I mentioned earlier that this is going to be something that you want to make sure is thought through ahead of time, because I've made this mistake before where I was trying to sell something higher ticket to people that didn't have a lot of money. And, I was, for example, selling a 12-week coaching program that was like small, intimate, a lot of access to me. And I was advertising it, unfortunately, found out later, advertising it to people that really didn't have money to spend on their health, and told me that they'd be willing to spend $10 on a program like that. So I've learned from my own mistakes that you want to make sure before you go ahead and create your whole offer, your whole program, that the person you want to sell your services to is somebody that has money and actually is looking to spend that money to solve the problem that they want to solve. Now, that doesn't mean that they have to be, 1%ers, super wealthy, anything like that. It just means that they have to be someone who has access to funds in order to pay for the service that you want to provide. And as far as ethics are concerned, when it comes to serving low-income populations, my belief is that you can do volunteer work, you can create free content, you can give scholarships. There's a lot of different ways that you can serve a low-income population that doesn't require you to sell really, really low-cost services. But I don't want to go too far into that. I just wanted to make a note of that, because sometimes people get a little spicy when it comes to pricing and they think it's elitist to charge higher prices. I disagree. But I'm also the kind of person that my entire business is revolving around free content creation. And so I can give a ton of value in my free stuff and also charge premium prices in my paid stuff. And I have no conflict in my mind between those two things. So the person, again, is who specifically your offer is for. And ideally, you want to make sure that you're focusing on someone who actually has some money to spend and is willing to spend that money on getting the problem solved that you want to solve. Now, that takes me to the second P, which is problem. And that is the specific problem you solve for your specific person. And this also covers your external and your internal problems. Your external problem is something that is tangible. Maybe it's a symptom, maybe it's a diagnosis. It's something that they absolutely know that they have, and they have to take a specific action to solve. The internal problem, on the other hand, is how they feel about that external problem. So that's their thoughts, their emotions, anything that's more internal and less visible or tangible. And it's something that in theory, they could change with the snap of a finger if they wanted to. So the way that let's just think about like body image, for example. Body image is an internal problem because if somebody wanted to, they could just decide today that they're not going to worry about their body image anymore and they're just done with that struggle. And in theory, they could, right? They could just decide that they're not going to deal with that anymore and just now it's done. So that's indicative of an internal problem versus an external problem. Let's use acne as an example. You can't just decide, you know what, I don't want to have acne anymore. I'm just going to decide not to have acne now and it's gone, right? Like if it was that simple, I'm sure any of us who have had acne in the past, which I will put myself in that category, that would have been amazing to just decide that you don't want to have acne anymore. So an external problem is something that takes action to actually solve. And when we're creating an irresistible offer, we want to make sure we have at minimum a specific external problem, and that can then inform what the internal problems are going to be. So the problem that you solve is going to affect everything that you do in your business. And this is really where we get into your niche. Niching is one of the most important things that people tend to want to avoid. And it's really one of the first steps we take in our MBA program because it informs everything else you do in your entire business. But not least of all, it informs your offer and it helps you construct an offer that people actually want to pay you for. The third P of an irresistible offer is potential. Now, this is the opposite of the problem. This is what is the transformation? What is the result? And just like the problem, we want to come up with the specific external and internal results that this offer can help provide somebody. So I used the example of acne as an external problem that somebody might be having. The external result would be clear skin. So the potential for this offer, if the problem was acne, would be clear skin as the external potential. This problem and potential piece is something that is basically a non-negotiable for your marketing strategy. And this is why we go so deep into this inside of the MBA program, because if you don't have this stuff figured out, you're not going to be able to market and sell your services very effectively. So if you are missing this, then again, our niche masterclass teaches you how to come up with all of this stuff. It's really, really important. And if you do have it, then obviously you just want to be really clear about it when you're constructing your offer. The fourth P of the 8 Ps is your package. Your package is what are the details and deliverables of the offer that you've created. Now, in a one-on-one service, obviously that's going to be the number of sessions that you have. Like if you're doing lab testing, if you're including supplements, if you have like communication in between sessions, all of that stuff goes into your package design. If you're not doing one-on-one, then it might be the group coaching specifics. It might be the course itself, how you deliver that course. Anything as far as the way that you actually provide that service is part of your package details. We have an entire module in the MBA program going through this stuff because it is so important to have this stuff nailed and to really figure it out ahead of time before you start trying to sell stuff. Because even though I'm of the mindset that the exact details of the package are less important than things like what problem do you solve and what results do you help somebody get, you still want to have this stuff figured out because that's actually what you're going to be delivering on when you sell your offer. And you can't really sell an offer without having the package details figured out. All right, so now we're getting into number 5, which is price. And this is what this whole episode is about, is pricing. I'm not going to be able to get into all the specifics about pricing because, again, we have a short episode and we have an entire module on this inside of MBA. But basically, your price is the specific investment options that you're going to provide for the offer. And that can include things like payment plans, if you're going to give any discounts, if there's a standard level or a VIP level. There's a lot of different ways that you can create different levels of an offer or types of payments for an offer. But this is where the actual dollar amount is figured out. And as we mentioned before, these different 8 Ps are going to affect the price, but you do have to actually come up with a dollar amount for the offer itself. And as I mentioned earlier, it's a lot easier to start low and increase over time than it is to start too high and then try to decrease it later. So I always recommend starting a little bit on the lower end where you almost feel like somebody would be stupid to not say yes to the offer. And you feel like you're maybe getting a little ripped off is the best place to start. You don't want to feel like, again, that you're getting raked over the coals as far as the price is concerned, but you should feel like your customer is getting more value than you are when it comes to your starting price point. So this is something where using that profit planning guide that I was mentioning, which you can download for free at lauraschoenfeld.com/profit, PROFIT is how you spell profit. That's where we actually talk about the exact dollar numbers that you can figure out for your business, your services, your, programs, that kind of thing. But this is something that you definitely want to attach to any offer that you create so that people know what they're paying for. Because, maybe an offer sounds amazing until you share the price, or an offer sounds amazing and then you share the price and they're like, wow, this is almost too good to be true. That's the kind of response you want your offers to have. And that's something that we teach you how to do inside of the MBA program. So, the 6th P is perks. And this is really the bonuses part of your offer. This is not something you have to have, but it can sweeten an offer and it can make it more irresistible, and it can help overcome objections to the sale when you're speaking to a potential customer or client. And so we teach how to construct bonuses inside of the MBA program to make sure that they're actually something that's going to help make the sale more likely, and you're not just throwing in a bunch of random stuff that isn't actually valuable to your ideal client. But bonuses and different perks can be something that definitely make your offer more irresistible and make it easier for you to sell it than if you were just talking about here's the sessions and here's how much time you get with me, right? So, and a lot of this conversation today is about how do you make your offer stand out from the other businesses out there. As you probably know, there's more and more people getting into online business every single day. And the more people that join the online business space, especially in the health and wellness industry, the more you need to stand out. And so if your price is similar to other business owners, that's fine, but you need to stand out as providing more value for the price. And ideally, that's using things that are not you giving more of yourself. So that's where these bonuses can come into play. And that's why we include that as part of our 8 Ps of an irresistible offer, because these perks make things more irresistible. All right, P number 7 is pressure. Now, I always joke with my MBA clients, I don't love the word pressure because it just sounds sometimes it can sound a little sleazy. To be totally transparent, it was the best word that started with a P that fits this model. And it's also something that actually is accurate. So pressure is when we're talking about urgency or scarcity or a deadline for deciding if somebody's going to join your offer. So you do actually want to create a little bit of decision pressure. You don't want to use scammy or sleazy tactics to make fake pressure on people, like fake deadlines or fake scarcity. That kind of stuff is not good. But having true scarcity or true urgency to make a decision is an important part of an offer because, as we know from human psychology, people notoriously are bad at making decisions if they're just given an infinite amount of time to decide. And so creating a little bit of urgency or scarcity by constructing your offer in a way that there's a time deadline, maybe it's a price change, maybe it's a certain number of spots, maybe it is a start date of a program. creating a little bit of decision pressure is something that can help somebody make that decision faster. And sometimes that decision is a no, right? Like we want to give our clients the opportunity to say no and not feel bad or not feel like, FOMO or anything like that. Or at least not like, ridiculous FOMO. A little bit of FOMO is fine, but not like, oh my gosh, you're going to your whole life's going to end if you don't make this investment now. Like that kind of approach to pressure is really gross, right? So we don't want to do that, but we do want to help encourage a decision to be made in a timely way. And that's where the pressure piece can come into play. All right, our 8th and final P of the irresistible offer is promise. Now, your promise is actually related to any sort of guarantee and also your terms and conditions of your program. So what are you promising to provide? What is are you promising satisfaction? Are you promising results? Like, what are you saying you are guaranteeing is going to happen when you deliver this service? So it depends on the service. I typically don't recommend having a money back guarantee on one-on-one services that you've already delivered because you have to charge for your time. Like that's one way to totally trash a business is to give money back on services you've already delivered. But having some kind of guarantee on like a group program or a course or unused one-on-one services, that kind of stuff can help take some of the fear out of saying yes to the investment and really help someone feel very confident that they're going to enjoy what you're delivering, that they're going to get results, and really just making it as likely as possible that they're going to have a great experience working with you. So that's what the promise is. You're not necessarily guaranteeing results. You can never fully guarantee results because you can't actually do the work for your client. Some businesses do have a results guarantee where they'll give you your money back if you don't get a certain type of result. But that is something you want to use sparingly because obviously you can't guarantee that somebody's actually going to do the work necessary to get the result that you're promising. So you want to make sure that you're building in some level of conditions there where they've actually taken the steps and they've done the work and they're not just like, oh, I just like watched your course and I didn't do anything, but I didn't get the result. We have a 30-day no questions asked guarantee on the NBA program. And the reason we do that is because we have a lot of people in our audience, clients we've worked with that have had, unfortunately, bad experiences with other business coaches. And rightfully, they're a little nervous about investing again and having another bad investment. And so we include that 30-day money back guarantee because we want people to be able to really test the service that we're providing and see if it's the right fit for them to make sure that they're confident that they did make the right choice in working with me and my team. So that is something that we've made a choice to include that. We have a very low refund rate. And most of the time when we have a refund request, it's not really related to our service. It's because somebody realized that they didn't want to build the kind of business that we're teaching, or, they had some kind of life event that made them have to put their business on hold. So they needed to get out of the program. And we're totally happy to release people within that deadline because we are clear about that 30-day policy. But if somebody's really not a good fit for the program, we are happy to release them from the experience because we only want happy customers, right? We only want people paying us if they're getting what they wanted out of the experience. And so we include that guarantee to make it more likely that somebody's going to be happy with their experience. And because somebody can see that when they're deciding to invest with us, that can make them more confident that they are going to have a good experience and that they're not going to waste their money or regret the investment. So if you can put that into your business in some way, shape, or form, that can increase the confidence of your customers that they're going to have a good experience and that they're going to be glad that they invested with you as opposed to spending a bunch of money and then regretting it. All right, so those are our 8 Ps. I'm just going to repeat them for your sake if you're taking notes, just to make sure you have all of them written down. Number 1 is person. Number 2 is problem. Number 3 is potential. Number 4 is package. Number 5 is price. Number 6 is perks. Number 7 is pressure. Number 8 is promise. And we go into tons more detail about this inside of the NBA program. We help you come up with your irresistible offer. We help coach you on the decisions around this these different 8Ps. We give you ideas and, examples of how you can set this up in your business. But I hope that our conversation today gives you a nice starting point for thinking about your offer and thinking about the pricing that you want to charge for your services based on the different choices you've made in each of these 8Ps. Now, like I said, if you want to get really ticky-tacky about the numbers when it comes to the prices that you want to charge, especially for your one-on-one services and your hourly rate, that's where our profit planner is going to be your best friend. And so go to lauraschoenfeld.com. Make sure you do www. I keep forgetting to say that. I don't think it works if you skip the www, but go to www.lauraschoenfeld.com/profit to download your profit planner. And that'll actually walk you through the exact steps I take my clients through to identify their minimum hourly rate and to make decisions about what they want to charge for their services based on how much they want to work, what they feel like their goals are, and what their service is worth, and to really make smart choices about pricing so that way you don't undercharge to the point where you're struggling, but you also don't overcharge to the point where you're struggling to actually sell, because there is a sweet spot we want to hit. We want our customers to feel like we are undercharging for what they're getting, but we as the service provider want to make sure we're meeting our financial needs and being able to take care of ourselves as well. So that guide will help get you started on your path to figuring out your rates. And the conversation today that we had is going to help give you the bigger picture of what you need to be thinking about when it comes to creating an irresistible offer and setting prices that actually help you grow your business. All right, well, I hope that today's conversation was super helpful for you. If it was, I would love to hear from you. Please reach out to me on Instagram. My handle is @LauraSchoenfeldRD. I would love to know if this conversation is going to impact the decisions you're making about your business. And if you're interested in joining us inside of the NBA program, be sure to get on the wait list. You can go to nutritionbusinessaccelerator.com to get on the wait list, and we'll let you know when that program is opening back up for new customers and clients. All right, well, I hope you guys have a great rest of your week. I'll look forward to seeing you here next time on the Fed and Fearless podcast. Take care, everybody. Are you a nutritionist or dietitian struggling to figure out how much to charge for your programs and services? Maybe you've heard that as a nutritionist, you should just charge what you're worth. But this way of thinking can cause you to either undercharge your clients or work yourself into the ground trying to earn your worth. As a healthcare provider, you can't set up a pricing structure that forces you to sacrifice your own health and well-being in the name of your business and your clients. But I promise it doesn't have to be this way. When you download my free profit planning workbook, I'll walk you step by step through the 10-step process for determining the right pricing for your nutrition business. As a nutritionist, you have the power to completely change someone's life for the better. There's huge value in that, so it's time to stop underselling what you do. By following along with this worksheet, you can determine exactly what you need to charge to achieve your revenue goals with ease. I'll teach you everything I've learned about pricing from growing my own nutrition business to over $250,000 in revenue annually and helping other dietitian and nutrition entrepreneurs hit their first $10,000 to $30,000 months and beyond. To get your free workbook, go to lauraschoenfeld.com/profit, PROFIT, and grab your copy today, so you no longer have to wonder how to set the right rates for your incredibly valuable nutrition services. That's lauraschoenfeld.com/profit. It's time to make the money that you deserve as a nutritionist, and I can't wait to help you get there.